Peace to the 12. This is a review, an overview, and basically what the movie Nope was about and what it was referencing to. Alright, and I'm sure as most of you know that watch this channel, y'all know that the movie Nope was based, it was biblical. It was biblically based. Okay, now there was, of course, dramatic license and theatrical license. You know, it's not just going to go out and be all scriptural and whatnot, but it was a very spiritual movie. As most of you know, so I just wanted to go over an overview of this film. I went to see it yesterday at like 2:15 on July 22nd. But anyway, let's get straight to it. Of course, I'm gonna put this spoiler alert out here if it wasn't obvious. I'm about to spoil the whole movie. All right, and as I'm spoiling this whole movie, no, I will not be going in order. So I'm just gonna be going on parts that I noticed, and we're gonna go from there. All right, and just to prove that, all right. So that being said, let's get straight to it. So, right off the rip, for those of you who might be scared, oh, what do you mean biblical movie? Right off the rip of the movie, a Bible verse is shown right off the rip before anything happens in the entire movie, and that Bible verse is Nahum 3:6. Now, this film was clearly based a lot loosely on the whole chapter of Nahum, the 3rd chapter, you know, but that's not what this video is about. However, I will probably watch this movie again in the future and probably notice other things. And you brothers put in the comments things that I might miss in this breakdown. Anyway, so let's get what was stated in the movie. Nahum 3:6. And I will cast abominable filth upon thee, and make thee vile, and will set thee as a gazing stock. You know, and something vile was sent on them. It was the main antagonist, which was that unidentified object, which we find out later that the object itself is actually a creature, or what it seems. But you know, they were made to look as like a spectacle anyway through the film. Remember in the beginning of the scene, in the beginning of the movie, well, not really in the beginning, really towards the beginning, where this brother, I can't remember his name, I think his name was Otis Jr. He went to go give them a horse and whatnot, and the people there looked at him, and I remember he said his name was OJ, and you had this so-called white woman look at him like, did you say her name was OJ? And she looked at him like he was a spectacle, man. But anyway, reading on other things that was in the movie, like I said, he was clearly influenced by Nahum, the 3rd chapter. He himself put this verse in the movie. But let's get Nahum 3:2. Right? The noise of a whip, and the noise of the rattling of the wheels, and of the prancing horses, and of the jumping chariots. All these things were in this movie, man. We're going to touch on chariots in a minute too, but all these things was in the movie. You had the noise of a whip. There was a part where you cracked the whip on the horse to get it to move faster. You had the noise of rattling of wheels. You had motorcycles and cars trying to get away from the UFO. You had prancing horses. Horses was all throughout the film, you know. And you had jumping chariots. All right. Which the spaceship itself, or whatever you want to call it, was jumping in of itself, jumping through the clouds. I'm going to touch on that spaceship in a minute. I just wanted to get one more scripture in that same chapter. Like I said, he was clearly inspired by Nahum, the 3rd chapter. All right, so this is Nahum 3:12. All thy strongholds shall be like fig trees with the first ripe figs. If they be shaken, they shall even fall into the mouth of the eater. And through this entire film, pretty much everything was just like it said, like a fig tree, right? Like you just hit it a little bit and the fruits come up and fall down. And that's exactly how it was in that movie. All right, but check it out, right? Like I said, he was inspired. It says, they shall even fall into the mouth of the eater. Now, like I said, for those of you that watched the film, you know that the UFO actually turned out to be a creature. It actually turned out to be some type of beast, some eater, some consumer. All right, and it was eating people and buildings and whatever. So they were all falling into the mouth of the eater, like I said. Now this, you know, really, and let me say this too. Really, Nahum, the 3rd chapter, is really dealing with the destruction of Assyria, which is really a twofold scripture dealing with the destruction of Babylon the Great. All right, but this isn't a Nahum 3 breakdown. I just want to point out that he was influenced clearly by Nahum, the 3rd chapter, in writing the script of this movie. Now, Now we're going to get into that the UFO itself in the movie, right? Now we're going to get into that itself. Now, for those of you that don't know, in the Bible, believe it or not, UFOs can be found in the Bible. What you call UFOs, or what you call spaceships, or what you call flying saucers, etc. Now, a lot of you might say, what is this nigga talking about? Well, I'm going to show you. All right, in Ezekiel, the 1st chapter, and the 16th verse, Ezekiel gives you an example, a description of what he saw in the sky, right? So let's get it. Ezekiel 1:16. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of a beryl, and the color of beryl is green. But and they four had one likeness. Now he's about to give you what their appearance looks like. And their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. So he's saying it's like what I'm seeing in the sky, its appearance is like a wheel in the middle of a wheel, which is like you see in the UFO. That's where they get all these ideas from in movies and whatnot. They get it from what Ezekiel said, man. Now you see right here, it's a wheel, right? Within a wheel. All right. That's the description that he saw of UFO. There's an account firsthand from Alexander, who y'all call Alexander the Great, but brothers in the truth, we call him Alexander the Macedonian, right? Because he was a man of Macedon, an Amalekite to be specific. Nonetheless, there's an account that you can look up that Alexander the so-called Great, he called these things silver shields. He called them flying silver shields. And there are accounts through hieroglyphics and other ancient civilizations of them making reference to these wheels within wheels, these UFOs, so to speak. All right, so what Ezekiel is saying, that is an example of what you call a UFO. Now we're going to find out what this thing is known as in the scripture. So this UFO has a name. All right, the UFO is known as the chariot. They're known as chariots, Salakia. They're known as chariots. All right, let's get 2 Kings, the 11th chapter, and the 12th verse. Right? And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire, and the horses of fire. Right? And parted them both asunder, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. We're going to touch a little bit on that later. All right. But we know that they're the chariots of fire, right? And Elisha saw it, so he saw this thing, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel. So he knows that what he saw in the sky, which is just like what Ezekiel saw. It's just like what Ezekiel saw, which is what? A chariot of Israel. And he cried, he said, my father, the chariots of Israel, right? And the horsemen thereof, and he saw him no more, and he took hold of his own clothes and rent them in two pieces. So this chariot pulled up, and it took Elijah, it carried him into heaven, man. All right, that's why it says Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. Now in the movies, like I said, they get this from the scriptures. Now in the movies and films and all that other stuff, what does the UFO do? A UFO does two things. It destroys and it abducts. Now, in this movie particular, well, it was doing both in this movie, but they get that from the scriptures once again. Now, we just got an account of a UFO coming, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind by a chariot of fire. So he went up, he was whimsed up by a whirlwind into this chariot. All right, you understand? And we know that a chariot description is a wheel in the middle of a wheel. So there you go. We're gonna get another account of someone being abducted, right? We're gonna get an account of yahawashi, who y'all know as Jesus Christ, but his real name is Yahawashi, and Christ in the ancient Hebrew is Hamashiach. All right, the Christ. Christ means anointed. All right, so anyway, Yahawashi was also abducted. You can read about that in Acts 1:9. Right? Let's get it. Acts 1:9. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. All right, so he was taken up, and a cloud received him. Just similar to what happened with Elijah. A cloud took him up. right? And he was taken up. All right. He was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. He was beamed up. All right. He was abducted. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel. Who are these two men? These are angels, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? So why are they staring at the sky? This same Jesus, which his real name is Yahawashi, this same Yahawashi, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. So you saw him get beamed up, for lack of a better term. He got lifted up by a cloud, by a chariot, all right, by a wheel within a wheel, and he will come back in like manner. So he's going to come back through these same exact vehicles, right? And he's going to descend down, all right? And it said he was beamed up in a cloud. We're going to come back to that later as well. I'm going to give you one more account of somebody who was also beamed up, once again, for lack of a better term, by these vehicles, these chariots, right? Genesis 5:24. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So Enoch walked with the Most High, and he was not, for God took him. Yeah, he took him in the chariot, man. Let's get that in Hebrews 11:5, right? Hebrews 11:5. By faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found, because God had translated him. For before his translation, he had this testimony that he pleased God, right? So it said the Most High translated Enoch. What does translated mean? He transferred him. He removed him. He carried him away. All right. He took him from one place and put him in another. He was translated via the chariot. We already got the account of that happening to Yahawashi, as well as that thing happening to Elijah. Right? So those are all the examples of that. Now let's talk about once again, these things are known as the chariots. We got Ezekiel say, "Oh my father, they're the chariots." But let's get more scriptures proving that they're the chariots, man. And they have the ability to destroy as well. That's why you get these movies like Mars Attack, Attacking the Martians, whatever, man. The Day the Earth Stood Still, down, whatever. Anyway, let's get Psalm 68:17. Right? Psalm 68:17. The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them as in Sinai, in the holy place. So the Lord is among the chariots of the Most High, or the chariots of God, right? And angels are what operate these chariots, all right? And these chariots are known as clouds. They're known as wheels within wheels, but they're known as the chariots of the Most High God. We just got it, the chariots of God, all right? And they can destroy. Let's get that in Isaiah 66:15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. Now, in the movie, fire wasn't really an issue. The UFO never really used fire, any laser beams, but he did use whirlwinds, right? And we're going to get an account of these UFOs literally sending fire down and destroying, right? And that's what you get when you watch these movies as well. That's what they're based on. 2 Kings 1:10. And Elijah answered and said to the captain of 50, if I be a man of God, then let fire come down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50. And there came down fire from heaven and consumed him and his 50, man. So fire literally came down from heaven and consumed this man and his troop of soldiers, man. Did that fire just come out of nowhere? No, man. The fire came from the chariots, man. And we just got that, right? His chariots. And with flames of fire. Let's get one more account of the chariots bringing destruction through fire, right? Genesis 19:24. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. So from the Lord out of heaven they brought fire and brimstone. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. All right. And there's actually a rock known as the pillar of salt that you can look up. Look up the pillar of salt that's in Sodom and Gomorrah. Also, you can look up how they said that how Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. It had to be through unnatural, supernatural means. All right, because the sulfur content means it couldn't have just been a regular fire. All right, now scientists will say it was a meteor or whatever. No, it was the chariots, man, and they vaporized it just like this right here. But and now, like I told you, we're going to be focusing on the whirlwind aspect of this UFO from the movie Nope, right? The whirlwind aspect. Let's get a couple of accounts of the whirlwind being mentioned. 2 Kings 2:1. And it came to pass when the Lord would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. Yeah, by a whirlwind. Now in the movie, the thing was the UFO in the movie Nope was using a whirlwind to bring them up, man. All right, and when he bring them up, he consumed them, which we'll get into that a little bit later. But he was using the whirlwind to bring them up, just like we just read, right? He would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind. All right, Isaiah 66:15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind. Yeah, with his chariots like a whirlwind. Once again, like a whirlwind. To render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. All right, it tells you that Jeremiah 4:13. Behold, he shall come up as clouds, and his chariot shall be as a whirlwind. So he comes up with clouds. He pulls up to you like a cloud pulls up out of nowhere. And in that movie, right, all throughout the movie, you had clouds. The UFO, it was using clouds as camouflage. It was flying in between the clouds. It was blending in with the clouds. You're the cloud that never moved. All right. We're going to touch on clouds a little bit later. Behold, he shall come up as clouds, and his chariot shall be as the whirlwind. His horses are swifter than eagles. All right, yeah, these chariots, these operates, this vehicle is swifter than an eagle. Woe unto us, for we are spoiled. And we get one more. And I looked, this is Ezekiel 1:4. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. And I believe it's a movie, Independence Day, when there were bright clouds with kind of like an amber orange hue to them. I believe that's the movie. It's one of those movies, man. But nonetheless, here's all the accounts of the whirlwind. All right, so the whirlwind, that's biblical as well. All right, and they even have images. Now this could be fake, but they even have images of so-called UFOs being around tornadoes, man. They have images of that. All right. So we talked about how they're known as chariots, how they can destroy, how they're also known as wheels within wheels. All right. Now we're going to talk about how they're known as clouds as well. All throughout Exodus, you have this case, but there are other examples too. There's another time when it's called a bright cloud. Like, for example, in Matthew 17, they tell you, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And a voice appeared which said, this is my son, who I am well pleased. This is my beloved son, who I am well pleased. Hear ye him. That's in Matthew 17, right? And it says a bright cloud overshadowed them. This is the bright cloud. It's not an actual cloud, man. It's a chariot. Once again, the many names of this thing is known as the cloud. It's known as a chariot. It's known as a wheel within a wheel. It's known as a I think I said everything actually, but nonetheless, it's known as a bright cloud as well. Let's get some accounts. Exodus 13. These two are going to be from 13, 21, and 22, right? And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by the day and night. So this cloud that was around them, it was not an actual cloud, man. It was a vehicle. It was the chariots of the Most High, man. All right. And as they were coming out of Egypt, the cloud was like that by day, and then it lit up. It got that orange hue at night, kind of like this, right? To lead them at nighttime, day and night. Exodus 13:22. And he took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of the fire by night from before the people. So this encompassed us the entire time, right? All right, Exodus 14 and 19. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. So now the cloud got behind them, man. Let's get more accounts of this being called a cloud. All right, the chariot being called a cloud. It's not a literal cloud. Once again, you have to use your spiritual eye, man, for those who have the ears to hear. Right? Exodus 14 and 24. And it came to pass that in the morning, watch the Lord looked onto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians. So the Egyptians saw this, man, and they was troubled. Fear fell upon their faces, man. All right, and the Most High was looking through the pillar of fire and of the cloud. He was looking through the chariot, right? And it came to pass, as Aaron spake unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, and they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Once again, the Lord appeared in the cloud. This cloud is a chariot. Exodus 16 and 10, right? Let's get Exodus 19 and 16. It's also known as a thick cloud. And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. Yeah, they were afraid. A thick cloud, man. You see how it says thunders and lightnings? There's a scene in the movie. You brothers have seen this movie, Nope, which I'm talking about, obviously. In that movie, there's a scene where the brother, what's his name, Daniel Kulaya, I think that's his name. He was driving the van, and it started to rain heavy, man, and there was thunders and lightnings, and it was pouring over him, right? And then it started to rain blood and all type of stuff. So, and what was it? A thick cloud. All right. Now this is what I mean. An example of the fire or at the cloud at night. This is what the cloud kind of looked like at night. I mean, of course, I don't really know. I wasn't there. But this is what I'm going with. All right. Once again, it's called a cloud. This is Isaiah 19 and 1. The burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. So the Lord cometh upon a swift cloud. All throughout the movie, this vehicle, this creature was moving throughout the clouds. This chariot, this UFO, it was moving throughout the clouds. I just wanted to add that away. And the Lord comes by the swift cloud. It was fast as hell, man. All right. And it said what? The idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence. Now, in the movie, you had an idol being moved at his presence through the clouds, right? You had a horse. There was a horse idol. By the way, for those that don't know, you're not supposed to make idols or statues, erect idols and statues, right? And there was a scene where there was one in the movie, and the UFO thing picked it up and threw it through the van, man, which is an example of the idols of Egypt being moved at his presence. All right. Now we're going to find out that these chariots have come to destroy, man. Like I told you, they're here to deliver. We got the examples of him delivering. Yahawashi got beamed up. Elijah got beamed up. Enoch got beamed up. But they can also destroy you. Let's get those accounts in. Oh yeah, same chapter, Nahum 3. Like I told you, he was very he was very inspired by Nahum 3. By him, I mean Jordan Peele, right? The director of the movie Nope. All right. Now Nahum 3 and 3. The horseman lifted up both the bright sword and the glittering spear, and there is a multitude of slain, and a great number of carcasses, and there is none in of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpses. All right. So there's a great multitude of people dead, right? And there is none in of their corpses. In this scene of the movie, right, they give you an example of that by this guy. I don't know this dude's name, you know, the Moabite, the so-called Asian man in the movie. And he had a whole crowd of people. You can kind of see him in the background. And what happens was he thought that the chariot was on his side, that it befriended him and that it was cool with him. And what ended up happening is the chariot pulled up. It lifted all these guys up via a whirlwind, and it consumed them. All right. And a multitude of them were slain. They all died, man. and there was none in their corpses. And then later on, you hear all their screams, and the blood starts to flow from the UFO thing on the house. Right, that happened. He picked them all up, And once again, in the same chapter of Nahum, right? They shall even fall into the mouth of the eater. Same chapter, Nahum 3 and 12. So they shall fall into the mouth of the eater, and that's what they did. They fell into the mouth of this thing, and they were done, man. Donezo. A multitude were slain, great number of carcasses, man. And there was no end in the court. There was a lot of people in there. They all got swallowed up. Which brings me to this next thing. Notice everyone in these bleachers were heathens, man. This guy was a heathen. These guys were heathens, and they didn't make it, man. And Peele made that like that on purpose. Now, remember in the movie, OJ and his sister, I don't remember her name, they were supposed to go to his show, man. All right, but they didn't make it, man. All right, they were escaped out of the nations, as the scripture says, and all these people were destroyed, man. Let's get another example. Job 4 and 9. Of them perishing by the chariots, by the blast, right? Job 4 and 9. By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. And they were consumed by the blast of this thing, man. This thing came up, it sucked them up like a whirlwind, and then it consumed them, quite literally. All right, and just to show you what this word blast means. This word blast means a blowing, a breeze, a puff of wind. Yeah, a whirlwind. All right, so by the blast, by the whirlwind, they perish. And they were lifted up. All right, and they were consumed. All right, what's consumed mean? To destroy by separating into parts which cannot be reunited. Eating, to eat. All right, they were consumed, quite literally in the movie, in the film. All right, so Psalm 73, 17 and 20, let's get another example. Until I went to the sanctuary of God, then I understood their end. Yeah, he understood their end. This is the end of the heathen nations, man. Now, granted, let me just go ahead and put this out here. All heathens are not going to be destroyed in the coming of the day of the Lord, but a huge number will be. All right, because we all know, proceeding to Isaiah, the 14th chapter, that they're going to go into servitude. All right, so not all of them are going to be destroyed, but a great number will be. All right, so, and and David understood their end. Surely thou didst set them in slippery places. Thou castest them down into destruction. How they are brought into desolation, as in a moment they are utterly consumed with terrors. All right, and they were consumed. They were utterly consumed within a moment in this movie. All right, within a moment they were utterly consumed, and they were consumed with terrors. They were screaming, like I told you in the movie. Screams could be heard through that spaceship, man. Right? As a dream when one awaketh, so, O Lord, when thou awakest, thou shalt despise their image. And he despised the image. He despised the image that this man had in his mind, that he was a friend of this chariot, man. It was despised, and he was consumed and destroyed. And they screamed, man, as they were consumed by this whirlwind. Right? And I wanted to add this too, in the movie, right there, in the movie when OJ, Daniel Kaluuya's character, pulls up, he sees a pig on a roof, and to me that pig on the roof was in reference to not eating swine, man. Deuteronomy 14:8. And the swine, because it divideth the hoof, yet cheweth not the cud, it is unclean unto you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcasses. Yeah, you're not supposed to be, you children of Israel, you're not supposed to be eating unclean foods such as swine and many others, right? And there was a pig on the roof, so this chariot didn't even pick up the pig. It picked up all these people, but not the pig, the unclean thing. Now, of course, obviously, you're not supposed to eat people, but I believe that Jordan Peele put this scene in the movie, as a reminder, man. Now we're going to touch on the three characters: Angel, Angel, OJ, and I don't remember his sister's name, but yeah, nonetheless, they were the only ones in this movie to survive. Like I told you, all the heathen in this movie, they perished. That was not by happenstance. Once again, the only people that are going to be delivered are the elect of the nation of Israel. All right, and notice the three people that survived were what? Two so-called blacks, and a Hispanic. Why? Because that was a representation of the Israelites, man. And we're going to prove that we're going to be saved through these three scriptures. There are many others, but we're going to get these three. Malachi 3 and 6. For I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore, you sons of Jacob are not consumed. All right, so the sons of Jacob, i.e. the Israelites, we are not consumed. Now, we just read people getting consumed. We just read them getting consumed. But we do not get consumed because we're of the sons of Jacob. And consume, and in the movie sense, they were getting eaten. Consumed can mean eaten. All right, Lamentations 3:22. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. All right. Now, some of you might say, well, wait, it was trying to kill them in the movie too. Yes, but it didn't do it. They all survived. All right. That was not coincidence. And once again, through the Lord's mercies, we are not consumed. His compassions faileth not for the sons of Jacob. Isaiah 14:1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. Yeah, he will have mercy on Jacob. And in this same chapter, Isaiah 14, we find out that the other nations, they go into captivity. All right. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, man. All right. And I want to point out once again, this movie was 100% biblical. And he went about trying to let you know this woman, played by Keke Palmer, OJ's sister, she had on a shirt in the movie, and on the back of the shirt it says the Jesus lizard. Now, I'm sure that's a coded meaning, but nonetheless, they made sure to show you the word Jesus, man. Once again, this was a biblical movie. She didn't wear this shirt by happenstance, man. All right. They wanted to let you know that this was a biblical movie. They had yahawashi on the name of the shirt. Now, I don't know what the Jesus lizard means, but nonetheless, she had it on. I also wanted to point out that this so-called Hispanic man in the movie, his name was Angel. All right, his name was Angel. You think that was a coincidence that his name was Angel in this movie? All right, and like an angel is meant to watch. He was the guy that was tasked with setting up the cameras to watch over the other two, OJ and his sister. That was all him dropping hints, man. His name was Angel. That was not by coincidence. All right. I also wanted to point out this folly that they made sure to make where they made his sister a damn promiscuous woman. There's a scene in the movie where she talks about fucking a couple of her therapists, man. And there's also a scene in the movie where it implies that she's either bi or a lesbian or whatever, because she looked at this woman up and down in the damn grocery store with lust in her eyes, man. All right, so they made it imply that Keke Palmer's character was a lesbian, man. I just wanted to throw that in there. Madness. But as far as this character is concerned, the whole movie she was rebellious as hell, but guess what? She was humbled, man. She was humbled through that movie, and through that movie in the sense that she thought everything was a game until shit hit the fan, right? Isaiah 32:9. Rise up, ye women that are at ease. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech. Yeah, she was an example of a careless daughter, straight up. She didn't give a damn about nothing. Every time the brother would mention doing work, going to work, putting in work, she wasn't down, man. She wanted to go freak off and do anything but damn work. Wanted to smoke and drink. All right. Like the scriptures say, her feet abide not in her own house. And she was definitely that. She was definitely that, man. Isaiah 32:11. Tremble, ye women that are at ease. Be troubled, ye careless ones. Strip you and make you bare, and gird sackcloth upon your loins. And she was trembling, man. When that UFO popped up, she didn't want nothing to do with that, man. She was like, oh, hell no, and this and that. She wanted to call it off. And I want to give one more scripture referring to her. She definitely played the role of a careless woman, man. Micah 7:10. Then she that is my enemy shall see it. And she was kind of acting like kind of a pseudo antagonist in the film. She kept getting in the way of her brother. She kept distracting. She kept trying to get him to loosen up and lose what his mission was, man. So she kind of played an enemy of sorts. And shame shall cover her which said unto me, where is the Lord thy God? Mine eyes shall behold her. Now, she didn't really say, where is the Lord? She believed in the UFO. She just didn't believe that it was coming with torments. Now shall she be trodden down as the mire of the streets, man. And like I said, she was humbled through this movie. And I want to point out this brother, too, OJ, man. He, in the beginning of the movie, he always had his head down. He was just being told what to do. He really wasn't taking no charge or no initiative, man. Hey, but guess what, man? And I wanted to say this to you brothers, man. You brothers got to stand up and be a man, man. Don't be afraid of these people, man. Don't be afraid to speak the truth. All right, but do it in wisdom. When I'm telling you don't be afraid, I don't mean go to your job right now and say I'm part of the 12 tribes of Israel. You know, we're the greatest people on earth. I'm not telling you to do that. But what I'm telling you, you got to stand up, man, when you called upon. All right, and do this work. All right, you got to stand up. And he ended up doing that in the movie because he had his head down the whole movie. But guess what? Later on, at the end, towards the end of the movie, he took charge, man. He got up on his horse and he took charge. All right, Jeremiah 1:17. Thou therefore gird up thy loins and arise and speak unto them all that I command thee. Be not dismayed at their faces, lest I confound thee before them. Yeah, at the end, he didn't give a damn, man. He wasn't dismayed. He took charge, man. And he commanded people to do things, and they were done. And it ended up being a success, man. And ultimately, they made it out alive. All right. Once again, you had a cameraman that was an Edomite, and he didn't make it, man, because he was a heathen. I just wanted to point that out as well. Job 38:3. Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. All right, so you got to gird up your loins like a man. You got to stand tall, man. You got to be a man in this thing. Stop walking with your head down all the time, bro. I just wanted to point that out as well. I also want to point out that he had an orange hoodie on, which in numerology, orange comes up to 33. People believe in all that stuff. You know, I'm not a numerology guy. I just wanted to point that out. I'm sure he put that in the movie for a reason. Also, they say that Jesus, whose name is Yahawashi, they say that he died at the age of 33. They say he died at age 33 through 36. That's what they say. All right, but I also want to point out this fake image, which is not the Lord. This comes from a lot of people say it comes from Caesar Borgia, but really it's deeper than that. It comes from a man named Serapis Christus. Look this guy up. Serapis Christus is where they get this image of so-called Jesus Christ from, man. And this is not what the Lord looked like. In reality, the Lord looks somewhat similar like this, man. All right, but look up Serapis Christus. That's where they get this guy from. This fake blasphemous image. But I also want to point out that he noticed in order for him not to die, he just didn't have to look directly at the ship. He couldn't look at it. That was once again biblical. That was in reference in Exodus 33:20, right? Moses couldn't look directly at the Most High or he would die. All right, Exodus 33:20. And he said, thou canst not see my face, for there shall no man see me and live. So if you saw the face, no one could see him and live. And he couldn't look up, man. Like the movie Don't Look Up. I've never seen that movie, but the movie Don't Look Up, he was not allowed to look up. All right, because if he did, the ship would be on him and he would die. All right. And I will take away mine hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. All right. Once again, you couldn't look at it directly, man, and you would die. Now they could look at his back, they could kind of see it in the movie, but they couldn't look directly at the face of that ship, or they would have died, man. And I want to get one more thing on that, on this movie that I noticed, and that's in Amos 5:18, right? Every time this thing popped up, this ship, this spaceship, this UFO popped up, all the electronics went haywire, the lights went out, all that, right? That's Amos 5:18. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord, to what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. And every time this thing popped up, all the lights, when it was lights out, it was a time of darkness. Zephaniah 1:15 is one more example. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick clouds. And that's a perfect example of this movie, because there were thick clouds, there were clouds, it was dark, gloomy, things were left desolate, things were wasted, things were destroyed. It was a day of trouble and distress. They had to run for their lives, and it was a day of wrath. All right, so that's a perfect example to prove what I'm talking about, man. Every time the lights would go out, electricity went out. It was a day of darkness. And that's all I got for this movie. I probably missed some things. You brothers put that in the comments, man. Hopefully this lesson was edifying. This is my review, my overview, my thoughts on the movie Nope, man. All right, and with that, I want to say peace to the 12. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahawah, in the name of his only begotten Son, Yahawashi, man. And I want to say peace to you brothers that's been doing this work in truth and sincerity. Peace to you people that are listening and learning. And I want to say peace to those that have been doing this thing before me, to the elders. And with that, I say shalom.